live? Are we live? We're live? We're live. Hey, everybody, welcome in. This is the DC live chat, the maiden voyage. There is Ronnie in the back, leaving the room after setting me up for which would be an outstanding 40 to 45 minutes. Gonna try to do these every Friday. Greetings, boxing analysts. Gonna try to do these every Friday around this time. I'd like to get your feedback, actually. Do you like them in the afternoon? Do you like them during the week at night? Do you like them at all? Because that's an important thing. But I figured it would be a fun time. There's so much going on in the world of boxing, so much going on in the world of combat sports. To be able to interact with everyone and get a live chat going could be fun, especially on Fridays before big fight weekend. We can talk about boxing odds. We can talk about all the news, all that and the other. So I appreciate everyone all coming on board for the first ever DC live chat. We're coming to you from the John Boyd Media offices here in New York City. What's good, Christopher Herman? Am I saying it right? Jermaine, I see you all the time on social media. A lot going on in the boxing world. I do want to talk about the heavyweight division, which right now is alive, finally, and it took Francis Ngannou getting into it. Audio is terrible. That's a problem. Sound quality could be better. Let's see what Ronnie says. Dan, we can't hear you. That's a problem. Let's call Ronnie. That's not great. Sound quality is bad. Says everyone. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? One, two, three, four, five. How's that? How's that? Oh, can you hear me? Christopher. Sound quality could be better. We're talking about Francis Ngannou, and we're talking about, he's back. Rumors of a Fury retiring, says Antonio Manzo. Audio is terrible. Sound quality could be better. Can't hear you, says the 505. What do we got here? Ronnie is here. What is going on here? Live. Jesus. What's the most wild moment you've seen in boxing? These are all great questions. We'll get to them. What do you guys hear? Is it fuzzy? Your audio is bad.
Check.
Check 1, 2.
Check 1, 2. 1, 2.
Is it talking directly into the mic? Is that better? Levels 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't like Netflix thing, Dan. It needs to go on a sports channel. I don't agree with that. Sound is low. That's all. What's up, Dan? Missed you, brother. Louis Overhand. Love that guy. Is it better? Can you bump it up?
That's what I'm trying to do. It's like all the way up, and it's like at a good.
1, 2, 3. Put the audio in check. Yes, audio sounds better. People are saying yes, it sounds better.
Okay.
Talk to me, chat. Does this sound better?
I'm gonna listen to it on my end too.
How does it sound? How am I sounding? I know I look great. This lens is amazing. How do I sound? That's the thing. Put my mic on. 1, 2, 3. We good. We good. We back, baby. Listen, it's not going to be easy on the live chat. I mean, technical difficulties we're gonna happen. Sounds better. Audio sounds better. Goes high and low. It's fine. All right. We're gonna go with it. We're gonna go with it. You need to talk extremely close to the mic, like an AMSR. Is that how you say it? ASMR. Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the DC live chat. We're off to a great start. Sound is good, says Drew. All right, let's go. All right, so let's get right into it. I sound fine, says Ronnie. Let's get right into it. Did you see this story? Are you getting this? Right here. Came out of nowhere. Netflix explores streaming live boxing match. This got my attention for a number of reasons. Netflix getting into the boxing business is very interesting to me. It should be very interesting to you. I actually signed up for an account for the Wall Street Journal just to read this story, but not on this computer. But I will paraphrase it for you. Basically, what they're saying is Netflix has reached out to Jake Paul's team. They've also reached out to PBC. And Netflix is interested in live sports. Next month, they're putting on something called the Netflix Cup, where golfers are going to go up against F1 drivers in some type of golf match. It's almost like a test run to see if they can do live sports. They want to get into boxing, and why boxing is appealing to them is because it could be a one-off. They don't have to commit to an entire season of a sport like the NFL, Thursday night package with Amazon, and so forth. So, if the Wall Street Journal is saying that Netflix is getting into boxing, or at least thinking about it, that's a good thing. I don't understand. I saw some blowback. I posted it on social media. Like, I don't want Netflix involved. I saw a chat in here, but Netflix, I don't like Netflix things. Says Christopher needs to go on a sports channel. What exactly is a sports channel? Because, Top Rank has boxing. It's on ESPN. That's a sports channel, and they do okay. There's not many sports channels out there. What's out there is streaming. And someone like Netflix wanting to get into the boxing business is definitely a good thing. One-offs kind of scare me, but that could change. This is how PBC operates. This is how PBC works. They find a network. They have very appealing assets. Gervonta Davis, Terrence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, to name a few. David Benavidez, and so forth. You can go through the PBC roster. Is Netflix only interested in those fights, those big ones that we've seen in 2023, one of the biggest years for boxing because all the big names are fighting each other? Or do they just want one-offs? Do they just want one-offs, or are they interested in the whole catalog? Do they want like a Thursday night or a Wednesday night fight that's not Tank Davis, that's not some of the bigger names, that's like a Showtime Championship level or even a Showbox level? I'm interested in that. Let's see what some of the people are saying here. Boxing analyst, does anyone in the chat remember Foreman's kidney punches? Okay. Antonio Manzo, Netflix raised their prices. Of course they did. Everyone's raising their prices. That's just going to happen, but most people already have it, which is important. Netflix will be involved. Don't mind it if networks are in the air right now. I think it costs more than DAZN. I don't know. It doesn't. Netflix doesn't cost more than DAZN, which is insane. I think DAZN costs like $22 or $25 a month. I think Netflix is $17. Boxing doesn't survive on non-sports channels. HBO, yes, it does. It's. I mean, those HBO and HBO's been gone for 5 years. Like, it's gonna survive. It's gonna be fine. It's just gonna have a spot. Netflix, it doesn't have to be a sports. The sports channel thing is interesting because Amazon, I guess is not considered a sports platform, but they have the NFL. They have the NBA. It's slowly becoming a sports channel. Like, when you have the biggest leagues in North America and in the world, you are a sports platform. That's just how it is. So that was like a big story. We're going to see what goes on with PBC because I've heard a lot of things out there. Obviously, there was that Sports Illustrated report last month about Amazon Prime and the PBC, but from what I've heard, there's nothing close at all. PBC and Amazon are pretty far apart on a deal. That's why you're seeing Netflix come into the fray here. And I also heard that Al Heyman and the CEO of Netflix are pretty close. So that's interesting, and it's all about Al Heyman's connections in the sports world. Let's see what everyone's saying. Boxing analysts. They all need to be under the same network. Following boxing, too expensive for the average guy. Subscription and PPVs are insane. Couldn't agree more. It's very, very confusing, even for me, who lives, eats, and breathes boxing as part of my living. It's very, very confusing. It's very tough to order all these pay-per-views under the same network. That's why we talked about this on one of the past episodes of Inside Boxing Live, was trying to get DAZN and PBC to work together. If PBC went to DAZN would have Matchroom, they would have Golden Boy, and then they would have PBC. You would think that would make it easier to make these fights, but Matchroom and Golden Boy have been under the DAZN banner for years, and they don't really do a lot of cross-promotional fights. But I do think we're in some type of awakening. I do think we're in some type of awakening is the right word for boxing right now, where changes have to be made. Promoters need to start working with other promoters more. Oscar De La Hoya, take him for what he's worth, went on last week on Twitter and said, I want to host a round table with all the promoters, make the best fights. Then last night he tweets, anyone that's any PBC fighters that don't have a promoter, reach out to me. I know that confused a lot of people because PBC is not technically a promoter; they're a manager. So you can be a PBC fighter managed by Al Heyman, but don't have a promoter. That's how they're able to operate PBC. So there are some fighters out there that I bet are wondering what's going on with PBC, where my fight's going to be. I'm technically a free agent. I can go with Golden Boy. I can go with Matchroom. I can see what else is out there, Top Rank, because Al Heyman's technically my manager. Drew, what's up, my man, from the Two Beers podcast? As long as the streaming service isn't acting as the promotion, i.e. Triller, why would people think it's a bad thing? Exactly, bro. Exactly. How is Netflix being in boxing a bad thing? This is one of the biggest streaming services in the world. Imagine All Access being available on Netflix. That would be in the top 10 every week. Imagine the stories out there. The fighters' stories are so interesting. All boxers have the craziest stories. Look at the Fury, Tyson Fury on Netflix, the Fury series, At Home with the Furies. It was very, very popular on Netflix. Imagine learning, the public getting to learn about Gervonta Davis, getting to learn about Canelo, Terrence Crawford. Those are just the big names. Forget all the other fighters out there that have amazing stories and the way that All Access is done. The shoulder programming on Netflix could be tremendous. Yeah, hit the like button to make this pop up on feeds like that. Chris Herman, I want to watch it, but it needs to make sense, Dan. It is making sense. It is making sense. Everyone has Netflix. I don't understand. You want to watch a big fight and you go to Netflix and you put it on. How does that not make sense? Have you met Al Heyman? One time. I met Al Heyman one time. It was in 2012. Didn't even know who he was. He was in Floyd Mayweather's locker room. I was in the locker room after Mayweather Cotto. And it was Al Heyman was in there. 50 Cent was in there. Justin Bieber was in there. Dan Canobbio was in there. What's wrong with that picture right away? But I actually have a photo of Al Heyman. I wish I could pull it up. Al Heyman. It's Al Heyman. It's Bieber. And it's Mayweather. And I took the photo. That's the only time I ever met him. I know a lot of people that speak very highly of him. I talked to a lot of fighters recently. Andre Berto, Jermell Charlo told me some stories about Al Heyman. It's something I want to keep doing, like a video series where I go to different people in boxing and ask them to tell us a story about Al Heyman. Because he's a very mysterious guy, obviously. He chooses not to do interviews. But he has done a lot of good for fighters, and he has a very unconventional way of doing things. Andre Berto told me that he doesn't text. He doesn't do emails. He has a flip phone. He writes everything down on a yellow steno pad. That's how he operates. Showtime and HBO leaving boxing is sad. Yes, it is. It is very sad. You told me 10 years ago there'd be no Showtime boxing and no HBO boxing. I would say, wow, that's crazy. There's no way. But media moves so fast. That's just how it operates. Things change. Streaming services come into play. Media landscape changes. I don't think it had anything to do with Showtime failing. Could they put on better fights? Of course. But they put on some of the biggest fights last year. Yes, they were all on pay-per-view. But it was mostly about what Paramount wanted to do. It was mostly about the companies that owned Showtime. They made decisions, and boxing got cut. A lot of things got cut, not just boxing. So, from a demographic perspective, boxing makes a lot of sense for Netflix. Yes, it does. It does make a lot of sense for Netflix. Look what Netflix did for F1. Skyrocketed F1. Look what Netflix did for golf with Full Swing. I'm watching wrestlers right now on Netflix. I'm sure that's going to do wonders for the wrestling world. Not that wrestling needs any bump, but when you get Netflix involved and they're slowly dabbling, putting their toe in the water when it comes to sports. They're doing a lot of sports documentaries. They're doing a lot of these watch-along, follow-alongs. I know for a fact that there's going to be a boxing Netflix documentary series coming out soon. So they're dabbling, and then they want to get into live sports, obviously, because all the others are in live sports. Netflix hasn't got into live sports yet. Amazon is, Apple is with MLB. Netflix, they want to keep their subscribers, or they want to gain more subscribers, then you add live sports, and they're a big-time player. They have a lot of money. Louis Overhand. Netflix production team would do tremendous with the behind the scenes. Just curious how the live aspect will go. The live aspect will go just like you're watching DAZN or you're watching any channel. I trust them at Netflix to put on a great product. You know, they have a lot of resources. Leo Santa Cruz named his kid after Al Heyman. I am not shocked by that. The way these fighters talk about Al Heyman, he literally is like a god to them. Rightfully so. You can say all the negatives about him. I guess a lot of the fighters fight twice a year, but look around boxing. A lot of fighters that aren't with PBC fight 2 times a year. All fighters need to fight 3 times a year, not 2. I agree. I agree to an extent. It would be nice. Whenever when Canelo fought 4 times in 1 year, in 2020 or 2021, that was amazing. He ruled the sport. I think there's an opportunity for a fighter out there to fight 3 or 4 times and become a star. You know, you don't have to be all bangers, too. Like, give us two of the 4 being really big fights, and then the other 2, I wouldn't say stay busy, but, like, fun fights. You know, put 2 of them on pay-per-view. Put 2 of them on a regular paying either subscription base or regular ESPN. Just be out there more. I think that's what De La Hoya is trying to do, is tell fighters, like, you have such a small window to make your money, become a legend in the sport. So why not try to go for it and fight 3 or 4 times a year? Because a lot of these guys who fight twice a year, they fight, there's a huge build-up, and we're all on board for the build-up, right? All accesses, all the content we consume in the lead-up to like a Tank Ryan fight. Then they fight, and then it's over. Tank goes away. Ryan Garcia, for the most part, disappears until his next fight. Now, Ryan Garcia is fighting in December, and I'm sure in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see a lot more Ryan Garcia interviews and stuff. Like, imagine Ryan Garcia fighting 3 or 4 times a year. He'd be a star. He'd be everywhere. Gary Russell? Oh, boy. I have not heard any news for Gary Russell in a while. So that's what's going on with Netflix. I think that's something to keep an eye on. I think when there's smoke, there's fire. Obviously, the Jake Paul stuff is interesting because he's Jake Paul. But he kind of operates in a separate lane than the rest of the boxers. The PBC is what gets me interested. The PBC aspect of it. And just how much is Netflix interested in PBC's roster? Are they only interested in the top names? Or will they buy like 8 to 10 shows? And then that's one network PBC can work with. And then maybe they'll find another network, regular TV or traditional. Guadalupe Jimenez, what's up, man? Are you coming to Haney Prograis? I don't think so. Getting towards the end of the year, I have a lot of stuff going on here at John Boy Media. I do a lot of other things besides boxing here. I do blitzball. I do a lot of baseball coverage, so that wouldn't be a hard one. I have a wedding that weekend too, so I will not be at Haney Prograis. Carlos Rodriguez, my guy Los, love you, Los. Is Fury Usyk holding up the rest of the heavyweights to progress within the division? Yes and no. I think the heavyweights operate in their whole different stratosphere than other boxers. A guy like Andy Ruiz, there's nothing stopping Andy Ruiz from fighting Deontay Wilder over the last 18 months. But he priced himself out with a $10 million demand. There's nothing stopping Anthony Joshua. You can't really get on him because he's taking fights, maybe not the fights we want to see, like a Jermaine Franklin and all those. But he's staying active. But, there's nothing stopping some of these other guys from getting in the ring. I think Fury did hold it up for a while by either not fighting or not giving us the fights we want. Like a Derek Chisora fight was a complete waste of time. The Usyk fight will happen in February, and that is going to be interesting because we're going to figure out who is the best fighter undisputed fighter. That's huge. So that's what's going on there. Let's talk about heavyweights. Now that we're on heavyweights, this is interesting here. So Francis Ngannou shakes up the world last weekend in Saudi Arabia by knocking down Tyson Fury, by going 10 rounds, looking great, got the loss, but ultimately came out on top. And I have said it all week long that this is a great thing. Francis Ngannou is now part of the boxing world. He shook up not just the boxing world, shook up the heavyweight division. Just talked about how bad the heavyweight division is. Now we have guys calling out Ngannou. We have guys like Anthony Joshua saying ready to fight Francis Ngannou on December 23rd. No problem at all, he said. today, actually. Let's take a look at this. Eddie Hearn has claimed that Anthony Joshua is ready to face Francis Ngannou on December 23rd. A potential matchup between the two heavyweights is not one people expected. Would be talked about before Ngannou made his boxing debut against lineal champ Tyson Fury. Third round knockdown of Fury. Yes. Speaking of boxing news, Hearn was asked about whether his former two-time world champion would face Ngannou. We take that fight on December 23rd, no problem. This is on BoxingSocial.com. He then explained Joshua is ready to look to fight again before the end of the year. We're looking at that date for Joshua anyway. Maybe I'll reach out to them and say, listen, if you're an opponent for Francis Ngannou, looking for an opponent for Francis Ngannou, AJ is ready, December 23rd, no problem at all. I like more time promotionally to make that fight what it is. See, that's the thing with Eddie Hearn. That's the thing with Eddie Hearn, is that he says that Anthony Joshua doesn't do gimmick fights. He kind of poo-pooed on an Ngannou fight last year, or in the lead up to this Fury thing, because he wasn't involved in it. So now Francis Ngannou shakes up the boxing world, fights Fury 10 rounds, knocks him down. All of a sudden now, Anthony Joshua is ready, willing, and able to fight Francis Ngannou on December 23rd. But throws in the caveat that, you know, we want more time to build this. Didn't we just hear this about Joshua and Wilder? They were building that up for a year now. Been going on 6 years of that fight. I thought December 23rd was going to be Joshua versus Wilder in Saudi Arabia. What happened to that fight? It's gone now. So now Joshua is focused on Ngannou. The fact that these fighters are now offering Ngannou fights, they're chasing Ngannou, is insane. It shows you why the heavyweight division is so frustrating, and they actually deserve this. So much inactivity, and I hate to put Joshua in that same vein as a Fury or Andy Ruiz or Wilder, because Joshua's out there fighting. You know, he's putting fights on a regular DAZN, yes, against Jermaine Franklin, but he's still out there, like, being active. Deontay Wilder has 1 round in the last, 2 years. Andy Ruiz is out for this year because he has an injury now, and he's fought 2 fights since the Joshua win, 3 fights, and he hasn't looked great in them. So the heavyweight division, they have no one to blame but themselves for a guy like Ngannou coming in and becoming the main attraction behind Fury. That's crazy to me. Naeem, if Fury Usyk happens in February, and then most likely will be a rematch, should Hrgovic have a fight in between or wait for the IBF to grant him a vacant title shot? Maybe AJ. Hrgovic, I mean, the guy's been waiting for his shot. I don't think any of these heavyweights want to fight Hrgovic. He is pretty good. He's tough. Yeah, that. He's just not a name anyone's familiar with. Look at the names that are floating around there. There's Wilder, Ngannou, Joshua, Fury. I hate putting Andy Ruiz in this list, but he's a name. Those are the fights that all the heavyweights should be making. Forget the belts and all that. Those are the money fights. And I don't think Fury Usyk has a rematch clause. I could be wrong. There. Why not make Anderson versus the heavyweight that fights on Saturday? Yes. Jared Anderson fights this weekend. No, he doesn't fight this weekend. Excuse me. The heavyweight that fights this weekend is Efe Ajagba. Jared Anderson is interesting. He's definitely on the rise. Tyson Fury came out and said that he's the heir to the throne. Ronnie Jerez in the chat. Great. This guy can't get out of the chat. Ronnie. He loves chats. Great stuff, Dan. Thank you. Naeem, big up to your channel. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. Going to start doing more of these lives. Hope everyone likes them. You know, trying out new things here. Fridays are a day that I'm usually free during the afternoon. I can come on here and talk boxing with the best community in the world. That is the Inside Boxing Live community. Hrgovic beat your guy. Yeah, he did. He fought Zhang. I thought Zhang won. Granted, I'm a big Zhang guy. Zhang's another name. What am I doing? Not naming him. I put Zhang in there over Ruiz. Get Ruiz out of here. Get him out of the heavyweight division. Disappear, says Antonio Manzo. Agree. Zilhai Zhang should be fighting all these names. Zhang called out Joshua recently. I'm going to pull that up right now. Zhang called out Joshua and said, I'm ready. December 23rd. Let's go. Let's get it on. Because I'm Zilhai Zhang. and I'll fight anyone. Coming off those 2 destructions of Joe Joyce. Our guy Zhang is in the news, folks. Here it is. Let's get it up here on the screen. Boom! That's how good I am at now at producing my own live streams. This is what you want to see. Why can't I see the headline? Zhilei Zhang ready and willing to fight Anthony Joshua next. Send the contract over. See, no one wants to fight Zhang. Zhang could do this. This is why Zhang's the best. He doesn't talk a lot of trash. He'll fight anybody. But you notice that no one's saying his name, despite having a massive Chinese fan base. I don't see Joshua calling out Zhang. I don't hear Fury saying Zhang. Wilder. I don't think Wilder even knows that Zhang exists. So that's Zhilei Zhang. I do not think that Anthony Joshua one day fight Deontay Wilder. No way. I mean, that was the fight. We talked about it for years, right? For years and years and years. Joshua Wilder was the fight. And it even gained more traction this year. It was the Saudi, that super card. It was going to be Usyk versus Fury, and it was going to be Joshua versus Wilder on the same card. I never believed that it was going to go off on the same card. I thought there would be 2 separate cards. So that's Saudi money. But that fight's now gone up in smoke. I mean, you have Joshua going after Ngannou. Deontay Wilder apparently is training in MMA. That does nothing for me, man. Ngannou Wilder in a ring, boxing, that's exciting. That's something I think we'd all would love to see. Ngannou Wilder in some type of hybrid MMA rules with smaller 4-ounce gloves in a cage, no kicks allowed. What is that? That's not fun. Just put them in a ring. Let them make more money. We need a World Boxing Super Series for the heavyweight division. I know it's a pipe dream. It is. It's a pipe dream, sadly. World Boxing Super Series was awesome. I don't know if it made a lot of money, but it was pretty great for the fans to see any tournament setting you set up for fans. That would be such an amazing thing. I don't want to get too into these fantasy things of boxing because you can really lose yourself in all the fantasies that you can get. But any tournament, imagine a tournament in every division. Like, the fans would be captivated by that. Drew says, if FA wins this weekend, we'll love to see him Big Baby as the co-main event. I think that they're setting up for that. I think FA Ajagba versus Big Baby is a top-ranked heavyweight fight that we should see next year for sure. I think Big Baby, Jared Anderson's ready to make that jump. He's ready to be in the discussion with the names that I was just talking about. Ajagba fights Joe Goodall this weekend. Not the best weekend of fights. What are the weekend of fights? I have them written down here. Let's take a look at what we have this weekend. Joe Cordina versus Vasquez. That's over on DAZN from Monte Carlo. Joe Cordina is one of the champions at 130. Last weekend, we saw one of the best fights of the year, Oshaki Foster and Rocky Hernandez going back and forth. A crazy 11th round, 12th round knockout for Oshaki Foster, who's the WBC champ at 130. So this Cordina fight isn't the most exciting fight, but it has a little bit of juice now because of unification between Oshaki Foster and Cordina. That seems like a lock for next year. So that's interesting. F.A. Ajagba fights this weekend over on ESPN. ESPN has a top-rated card from Lake Tahoe. So that's what's going on this weekend. Someone asked if I have a parlay. I have not put together my parlay. I don't know if I will. Sometimes I sit out. You know, I lost my parlay last weekend. I had Amanda Serrano under 10.5 rounds, and I had Fury Ngannou over 4.5 rounds. So if I would have just bet over 4.5, I would have won that one. But the Serrano not getting the knockout kind of messed up my parlay. But I was calling that fight. It was awesome. Frank Sanchez? What about him? What about Frank Sanchez? I don't really think much of him. He's good. I mean, he has no profile. That's a problem with heavyweight division. Like, they can get away with either not fighting each other or only the biggest names are going to now fight each other. Like, Ngannou is in the mix now to fight all the top heavyweights. Joshua, obviously. Fury, obviously. Guys like Frank Sanchez, who sadly don't have much of a profile or popularity, and Hrgovics of the world, they're going to be on the outside looking in. What else do we got going on? And we talked about heavyweights. This was something I wanted to talk about on Bloody Elbow. I don't know. Bloody Elbow. Was talking. I don't know if you guys have been following along with this UFC antitrust. Here it is. This is interesting. Because of the Ngannou Fury crossover fight, we have been reintroduced to boxing versus MMA, the models of it, the business models, crossover fights like Sean O'Malley versus Tank Davis. I actually think has a chance of happening. Maybe not this year or next year, but if O'Malley keeps on this rise, obviously Tank, I don't see going anywhere. They can fight each other. Obviously Ngannou fighting all the other heavyweights. I do think that Ngannou win jumped up or got the crossover fights going. So I don't know if anyone's been following along with this. So the UFC has been going through a lawsuit or antitrust lawsuit. Major update into the class action lawsuit against the UFC. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit denying promotion's appeal and likely setting the wheels in motion for a trial in 2024. So that means that the UFC's books are going to be opened up. We're going to have access to how they run their company, how much money they make per year, how much are they paying the fighters, or how little they are paying the fighters, I should say. This is very interesting for a number of reasons. Because I think boxing fans like to have this over MMA fans. Our fighters get paid. There's an open market. They're properly compensated. Yeah, we're not getting the fights that we all want to see on a continuous basis like the UFC does. But take a look at these numbers. I thought were very, very interesting. Conor McGregor's payments were divulged in these findings. Here's Ronda Rousey's payouts. Ronda Rousey only made $500,000, 1.8 against Miesha Tate. Remember Ronda Rousey, what she was doing on pay-per-view, what she was doing in the sports world? She was arguably one of the biggest stars in the UFC. And you're telling me she only made 1.8 against Miesha Tate? 4.4 million against Holly Holm. I'm pretty sure that pay-per-view did over 1 million buys. 4.8 against Amanda Nunes. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but it really isn't. This is the interesting part. These are Conor McGregor's payouts. So Conor McGregor, obviously the biggest name in UFC still. Clearly one of the higher paid fighters in the UFC. Oh, gotta go back to that. Wait, now I gotta go forward. I gotta pull this up right here. Here's McGregor's payouts, and I did a little cross research here. So McGregor versus Jose Aldo, right here. McGregor reportedly made 4.4 to 4.5 million. Aldo made 2.3. It's a lot of money. But if you look at what the pay-per-view did business-wise, a.k.a. what did UFC make on this event? A $10 million gate. 1.2 million pay-per-view buys. We're talking $50 to $60 million generated of revenue. And you only paid the fighters $6 to $7 million? That's less than 10%. In boxing, you're making a lot more money. It's kind of funny. McGregor versus Diaz won right here. 5.5 million for McGregor. Diaz gets 2.8. So we're looking at 8.5 million-ish, 8.5 million total to the fighters. That fight was massive. Do you remember the build-up for that fight? $61 million generated in revenue for Diaz. McGregor won. 61 million. And McGregor's only getting 5.5 million. That's a problem. Same thing with Eddie Alvarez. Eddie Alvarez pay-per-view did $66 million for the UFC. And he only gets 6.8. That's insane. I understand it's a lot of money. But this is different. It's sports. It's your athletes. They're like, there's a reason why this antitrust lawsuit is going to where it's going, and that's a trial. It's because the UFC is not operating in good faith with their fighters. They're withholding way too much. The pie, you had a pie chart, and there's 66 million for McGregor Alvarez. And you look at fighter pay, it's going to be a small sliver. And then the biggest part of that pie chart is going to be UFC, what they're taking from it. Based on filings on the antitrust lawsuit, UFC top star payouts have been revealed. McGregor made $25 million in 2015 and 2016, when he was the biggest star in the world. In that span, he sold 6.2 million pay-per-views. Not to mention record-setting numbers at the gate. That's crazy. Naeem says the UFC have a big problem, big issue when it comes to fighter pay. But what compounds it further is their rules over fighting sponsorship. Their numbers are crazy and limited. Yeah, they don't get any cut or not too much cut of sponsorship. You know, they can't go out there and make their own deals. Like Shakur Stevenson just did a deal with Reebok. I'm sure he gets all of that. Maybe Top Rank gets a little bit. But, yeah, they can't really do anything with sponsorships. They can't do anything with their name, image, and likeness. It's no wonder UFC fighters are always looking at different sports, setting up their own promotions. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why McGregor went from, look at this, what he made in that 2015 to 2016, which made McGregor a star, which allowed him to fight allowed him to fight a Mayweather. He only made $25 million. He made that in the first 3 or 4 rounds of the Mayweather fight. He made $100 million against Mayweather. It's a different model. It's a different business model, but I still think it's interesting nonetheless. Something to keep an eye on. I think boxing fans love to kind of poke fun at the UFC or want them on the same playing field. But do you, though? If you're a UFC fan, I don't know if I'm curious if UFC fans actually care about these numbers because they're getting the best fights. I mean, these are all Nate Diaz 1, Nate Diaz 2, Eddie Alvarez, Jose Aldo. That's all in a row. Like these are massive fights. Like they're getting the biggest fights, UFC fans. So do they exactly care if the fighters aren't getting fully compensated? Because it's not like they're walking away with nothing. You know, McGregor's still walking away with $6.8 million against Alvarez. And there are other bonuses. This is just what they're reporting. For years I've heard, oh yeah, McGregor, $500K to show, not for McGregor, but other fighters, $500K to show, $500K to win. But the UFC will always pay them more on the side. But that's what's going to be interesting with this antitrust lawsuit. Is we're going to figure out, they're going to open up their books, and we're going to see exactly what's going on with that. I don't know what happened to the, if I have it in the right chat. What's going on else? What else is going on in the boxing world? I want to do here's some boxing news. Showtime Sports. They're still in boxing. They had a rumored December 9th pay-per-view card that was going to have Floyd Mayweather potentially boxing Mikey Garcia in some type of exhibition. And on the undercard, we were going to have Danny Garcia versus Erislandy Lara, a middleweight fight at 155. And we were going to have Keith Thurman versus Stanionis. That was going to be the final pay-per-view in Showtime's history on December 9th, going up against Haney, going up against Top Rank's Heisman Knight. That's no longer in the plans. They've gotten rid of that entire pay-per-view. And what they're doing is basically one final show on December 16th from the Armory in Minnesota, which is going to have David Morrell as the main event guy. So, Showtime going out with David Morrell in Minnesota. I thought maybe they put together like a bigger card with bigger names. One last bang. But then again, HBO went out. Cecilia Brickhouse, I think, was the final fight. Great fight, great fighter, but not exactly what you thought how HBO would go out. And I think Showtime's doing the same thing. I'm going to end this chat here with top 5 fights remaining on the boxing schedule. We are in March. We are in November somehow. And we'll take a look. These are my 5. I'm interested in what everyone else would say. At number 5, I have Inoue versus Tapales. This is going down on December 26th, day after Christmas. Inoue going for his second undisputed title, this time at 122 pounds. Tapales had that big upset over MJ Akdaliov earlier this year. I think Inoue is going to run through Tapales. That's why I have it at number 5. Number 4, Shakur Stevenson versus Edwin De Los Santos. This is an awesome fight. Shakur is obviously supposed to fight Frank Martin. That fight fell out. In steps Edwin De Los Santos. He is a heavy hitter, a Dominican fighter who throws bombs. Don't think he has much of a shot. I think he's a massive underdog. But anytime Shakur Stevenson steps into the ring, I'm going to watch because I think he's one of the best talents in the sport. And it's for a vacant WBC lightweight title. So that should get the ball moving towards Shakur getting some of the bigger fights that he desperately wants. Number 3, Sonny Edwards versus Bam Rodriguez. This is an awesome fight at 112 pounds, 115 pounds. Not really being promoted that much yet. I think it will be in the lead up, but this is an awesome fight. Sonny Edwards has ruled that weight class for a long time. Bam Rodriguez, we saw what he did at Superfly. Now he goes back down, and this is an undisputed fight or a unification bout between two very skilled and younger type of fighters. So I have that at number 3. Number 2, Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis. Love that fight for a number of reasons. Devin Haney dropping up to 140. His first fight is against the world champion, Regis Prograis. Battle-tested Prograis, 34 years old. He didn't have a great showing in his last fight against Zorrilla, but that was also in his hometown. I think he was looking past Zorrilla. Still think Regis Prograis is very dangerous at 34 as a southpaw that can move around in there. Movement seems to give Haney issues. Lomachenko moved around in there. Thought he did well in that fight. But I like that fight a lot, and that's going to be on December 9th, DAZN pay-per-view. How do we feel about that? Haney Prograis. I hope it does good business. I know it's selling a lot of tickets in San Francisco. That's a big thing. Selling tickets, but how will it do on pay-per-view? The number 1 fight remaining on the schedule is David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade. I actually think this is going to be a hell of a fight. People are writing off Andrade. Write him off at your own on your own accord. Obviously, he hasn't been in the bigger fights, the biggest fight of his career, and he's like 35 years old. He's very tricky. He's very hard to hit, has sneaky good power. Southpaw is a stylistic nightmare for David Benavidez. Benavidez, on paper, should win this fight. Benavidez should be able to find Andrade second half of the fight and maybe even stop him. Andrade is very durable. We'll see how the legs of Andrade come into play here. 35 years old. He's going to need those legs. He's going to need to move for 36 minutes. And Benavidez has gotten so much better at cutting off the ring. I think he has gone from just like a brawler, seek and destroy knockout guy to a well-rounded boxer, Benavidez. He can't get frustrated early. He needs to stay the course and know that it's going to be a second-half type of fight for him. Boxing analyst says, I think age difference is what's going to separate them. Yeah, I agree. That's what the main thing is. Can Andrade keep Benavidez off of him for 36 minutes? He's going to be able to use his legs, 35-year-old legs, for 36 minutes. But you think about it, Andrade should be very fresh. Doesn't have a lot of wars on his resume. Has a lot of inactivity, though. I'll tell you that much. And Benavidez, I think, is coming into his own. The winner should get Canelo. Says 92 Aku. Yes, the winner of that fight in a perfect world would fight Canelo Alvarez. Now, the thing with Canelo is they're talking about Munguia. They're throwing around some other names for, that would be May, right? I think Canelo will fight Benavidez. But I don't think it would be smart for Canelo to do it on the second fight of his 3-fight deal with PBC. Canelo Benavidez, in my guess, will happen next September. Mexican Independence Weekend, T-Mobile Arena. Is it on Netflix? Is it on Amazon pay-per-view? Who knows at that point? We'll all know, obviously, when it comes. But I think the third fight of the deal should be Benavidez for Canelo. And then he kind of figures out what he wants to do after that. Because after Canelo, if Canelo fights Benavidez and beats him, then who's the guy out there that everyone's calling for Canelo to fight? Like, at that point, what can you possibly say about the guy? So that should be interesting. But still some good fights this year. October is a little tough. We got through it. November has some pretty good fights. November as a whole, obviously, Stevenson De Los Santos, 16th. Navarrete Conceição was also on that card. Love that fight. Diego Pacheco returns. I expect Pacheco to have a very big 2024 at 168 pounds. He could be the guy that's coming for Canelo. That's Diego Pacheco, but he's still far off from that. Obviously, the Benavidez-Andrade card is awesome. Obviously, that's the main event. And you got Jamal Charlo going up against Jose Benavidez, the brother of David Benavidez. This fight's at 163 pounds. It's not for the title. It's good to see Jamal Charlo back, but I don't know about this, man. Fighting at 163 pounds, not defending your title that you've held, even though you haven't fought in 2 years. Don't love that part about it. Garcia versus Lamont Roach. Love that fight. Garcia coming off of the loss to Tank. And then Subriel Matias versus Ergashev. This is going to be a bloody one. This is going to be an all-out brawl. Matias versus Ergashev on that card. That's a great pay-per-view. November 25th. And then there's same weekend, Chantel Cameron versus Katie Taylor 2 in Ireland. I think Katie Taylor is biting off more than she can chew yet again, going up to 140 and fighting Cameron, who beat her pretty easily. I made a lot of money on that one. Let's get some more questions before we say goodbye. I want to keep these under an hour. Boxing analyst, the longer it drags out, the worse it gets for Benavidez entering the ring weight trained. Two ways to think about that. I thought for a while that Canelo should get Benavidez before he gets any better. Kind of like what Mayweather did to Canelo. He got Canelo when he was 23 before he got any better. I thought Canelo should have done that with Benavidez. Ultimately, I think it's too late. I think Benavidez is too well-rounded of a fighter. He's going to give Canelo fits. As long as he can make the weight. I think Benavidez has figured out something with the weight. He obviously hired like a nutritionist, and he's been able to make 168 now without a problem. Was not the case. Obviously he lost his belt on the scale. One of the times he lost his belt. Other time was because of drug use. Not PEDs. I think he was doing cocaine. That's it, really. You got any other questions? Keep them coming. This weekend, not much. Cordina on the card from Monaco. That should be interesting. Ramla Ali has a rematch after she got knocked down and knocked out. Top Rank has a card featuring F.A. Ajagba. Golden Boy also has a card this weekend. There's a lot of boxing on the air. How much will people tune in? World Series is over. It's all football now. College basketball is going to start soon. NBA's in full swing. The NBA has their in-season tournament. Still don't know what that even means. I read a whole article on it, and I was still confused. So that's going on in the world of sports. I want to thank everyone who joined us here on the DC Live Chat. We'll be doing these once a week. Probably on Fridays, maybe at night, if that's a better setup for everybody. If they would rather join either at work or they rather join at night. If I do it at night, it's not going to be Friday night because I understand people want to go out, and I also have a life. If I decide to do it at night, it'll probably be midweek. If I keep it on Fridays, it'll be around 1 o'clock. Boxing analyst Kambosos versus Loma. What do you think about it? I think it's a fun fight. Obviously want to see Loma fight Shakur. I don't understand why he didn't take that. I guess he feels like he needs a breather. And with a breather, he takes on Kambosos, who is pretty damn tough. I think it's a fun fight. I think as long as they don't put it on pay-per-view. They put that on regular ESPN. That's a good number. Everyone knows who Kambosos is. Obviously, everyone knows who Lomachenko is. Lomachenko gets a win. He jumps right back into the 135 picture. Then he fights Shakur next year. So that can set up a Loma-Shakur fight. I think Loma will fight Shakur Stevenson. I just don't think he wanted to do it coming off with the Haney fight. And, I mean, Loma's fought everybody, so how do you really knock the guy? Does Jake Paul fight Canelo in the future? I'm not ruling it out. I've learned in the boxing world to not rule anything out. If it makes dollars, it makes sense. Canelo is never smart. Canelo has never dismissed it. He's always said, Jake Paul's doing his own thing. And whenever Jake Paul calls out Canelo, Canelo just kind of laughs it off. He doesn't say, I'll never fight the guy. So I would never say never. 2 to 3 years down the line, who knows? If Jake Paul's still in boxing, if he's still interested in fighting, he's a big name. You can't deny that Jake Paul's not. He's one of the top 5 boxers in terms of revenue, generating revenue, whether it's pay-per-view, gate, all that. And Jake Paul's back December 15th on regular DAZN. I'll be on the call for that one. That should be a fun night down in Orlando with Jake Paul boxing. All right, that's it. I think we're done here. I appreciate everyone tuning in. I don't know how to shut it down. How do you shut it down? Let's see. And here it is. We're going to end the stream. I appreciate everyone that joined the DC live chat. We'll be back next week at some point. Appreciate it. Take care, everyone. We'll be back.